You ever wonder what draws you to a certain car? When I was a little guy, um, my sister was getting ready to start driving, and my dad bought her a car and fixed it up for her. And it was a '69 Malibu, Chevelle Malibu. Had 307 in it, pea green looking. And anyway, I helped my dad kind of fix that car up for my sister. And anyway, long ways down the road, my mom got a new car and gave my sister her old car, and my sister gave me her Chevelle. And I was about 15 when I got that car and started working on it. And anyway, I loved it, and I probably didn't know what the hell I was doing when I was working on the thing. But anyway, I fixed it up a little bit and ended up blowing it up. And long story. And anyway, my dad helped me build it up again, and we painted it and put some bucket seats in it and built a pretty good 350, damn good 350 for it. And man, it was an awesome car. And anyway, things happen, and that car went away, and I kept the motor and most of the parts of it, and found another one in our backyard. And it was on blocks and cinder blocks, and pretty much everybody was like, man, you'll never get that thing running, and because the amount of work that needed to be done to get it going, it didn't have a motor, or rear end, or transmission, or, it was missing a ton of stuff. But I had the other body, and I had the other motor and all that stuff, and I knew I could put it together. I was probably about 19, I guess. 19 or 20. And long story short, I did. I got it going again. I put all the drivetrain in it. And back in the early 90s, I would go out and scour for parts on the weekend if I could afford it. And because you could still find stuff, And I went to a guy's house, and at that time I had an El Camino I was driving all the time. And mom wanted her yard cleaned up, and I ended up filling my El Camino with Chevelle parts for $40. Doors, steering gear, man, all kinds of stuff. And anyway, he says, yeah, my neighbor's got a Chevelle over there. It's got a custom interior in it, he told me. He's parting out. So, of course, I hauled ass over there and talked to the man, and this is what I found. It was stripped to the bone. It didn't have a front suspension. It didn't have rear end. Didn't have motor, transmission. Didn't have a front clip. The sheet metal was gone up front. Did have the SS hood. It did have this back body, which was perfect for the most part. It was an AC car, big block 4-speed car. And sitting inside of it was this crappy interior, It was like from Nogales. No offense, but it was just really bad. And anyway, there in the center was a console. Of all things, an automatic console with an automatic shifter in it, horseshoe shifter. And it's a 4-speed car, with a pedal and the other things kind of. Anyway, I looked at the console and I asked him, I says, how much is the console? And he says, $75. He goes, but I'll take $125 for the whole car. And I thought, man, I already got a Chevelle, The last thing I need is another one stripped out like this. But being the good guy, husband that I was, I just bought the console and left. and I got about a mile away from the house, his house, and I turned around and I went back and said, "Hey, man, if you can get that to my house, I'll buy it." And he said, "Yeah, I can get it to your house." So they forklifted it onto a flatbed trailer, and we pounded a stake in the ground and hooked a chain onto it and slid it off the trailer onto blocks at my house. And there it sat until I slowly rebuilt the front end, and I slowly got a rear end for it, and I got the body bushings done and the rear end bushings, and on and on and on, the brakes, suspension, and that's where I'm at right now with this thing. Why did it take me so long? I got the car a couple years before my daughter was born, and she's a senior in high school this year, and I just got it running. You know, life has a way of taking priority. You know, for a lot of years, I couldn't afford parts, you know, to fix this thing. So I bought tarps, and I covered it up, and covered it up, and bought new tarps and covered it up. And just kind of recently, things have happened, and I've gotten into some parts, and finally got it going. And this love affair with this car, it's been going on for 20 years. I was young when I bought it, and full of piss and vinegar, and I didn't realize how much it would cost to get her going, you know, since all the parts were missing. And I didn't want to strip parts off my other car to get it running, because I'd still have an incomplete car. And so I just whittled away on it. And then the internet and da-da-da, and I start researching it. And this car was built on the 5th week of October. So, Halloween. I wanted to get it running by Halloween of last year, but, you know, it's parts, there's always some more stuff you need. There's always some, you know, fittings, there's this and that, and it all adds up, you know. And my kids are priorities. So if there's no money for parts, then there's no money for parts. But anyway, this is it. This is kind of the lowdown on this car. I bought parts years ago. I'd seen a Z28 in a Hot Rod magazine or one of them Carcraft or something, and it had a tilt front end with steel parts, and it could open stock too. The hood could open stock, or the whole front end could flip over, and that was a dream of mine too. And up in my attic, I've got fenders and core supports, and it took me years to finally get a welder, and you know, it takes a long time to kind of get to where you want to be. So if you focus and keep pushing, anything's possible. Come here, bud. So this car, no, it's not that fast. Do I want it to be really fast? Yeah, but no. You know, one day my kids will have this thing. I've got other stuff that I want to make fast. This one, I want it to look cool. I want it to be able to start up and go wherever I want it to in this country. And it'll be like that if I can afford to put the gas in it. So that's part one of this thing. Once I paint it, put my center lines on it, finish the interior, should be pretty sweet. Don't worry, I don't have the fuel gauge hooked up yet. I need to get an isolator to fit in the engine compartment and then run a line in. Pet peeve. Buying gauges on eBay. I don't know if you can see this, but I bought the oil pressure gauge. And when I got it, look at how sun cracked that face is. Like it'd been sitting outside for a few years. The picture didn't show that. It works okay. This gauge, odometer, looked brand new. And I don't think it's working right. Once I start it up, it gets hot quick and it don't seem right. So I'm going to have to check that out. But, you know, people are always trying to get something on somebody, you know. Always trying to rip somebody off or pass the buck. I don't know, it's pretty cheesy. But when I fired this thing up, I filled it up with water. Make sure I didn't have any leaks or anything, and guess what? The heater core leaks. So it caused a mess on the floor. I had to bypass the line, and I'm at some point gonna have to put a new heater core in it. So anyway, that's it. Found a few pictures to show you guys. That's how it kind of starts. Here's me and my dad. We just finished building that chevelle, and it ran great. That was in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I was 17, and right there I was getting ready to drive back to Arizona. I asked my dad, "Golly, how'd you let me do it?" He said, "Man, I wanted to follow you the whole way home, make sure you made it." Back then I was pretty much fearless. Here's the car I've been showing you. Underneath the tarp, but sanding all the paint off it by hand, I think. That's kind of what it looked like when I got it. Didn't have a rear end in it. Or, I don't know, it had what you see, I guess. No interior. Weird day. We just bought our new house and our first house. And I put the chevelles in the backyard. And this was Easter Sunday. Started snowing. A very rare day. And that was all the snow, of course, maybe a quarter inch. My old dog. My daughter. And tarps. Here's the picture of my second chevelle. I was all proud because I had just got my center lines put on. I had the wheels for maybe a year before I could afford to buy the tires. And anyway, they were nice and shiny then. That's about it. Come a long ways since you've seen it there. Boy, if this car could tell some stories.